I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk, now.
Hello, and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me in the studio, it's Cocaine Mitch! It's Andy Greenwald! Woo!
I bet people were at home and they were thinking, like, what's on the docket? Because there's a lot of TV.
I know.
And we didn't touch Killing Eve on Monday. There's some interviews people may know we have piled up. But I think over the years we've been doing this podcast, which is like 6 years now, 6+.
Yeah.
They know that you care about plus or minus two things.
Yeah, so...
You care about crime fiction and you care about the West Virginia senatorial map.
Yeah. A lot of people who know me know this. Everybody who knows me knows this. I am the Rukmini Calamachi of Narcos. And that means this episode of The Watch is my caliphate.
Wow.
Because the Narcos, like not necessarily Narcos, which is coming back for season 4. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's just been movements on the margins of the Narcoverse.
Uh-huh.
Now, you mentioned the West Virginia senatorial race.
That's what I'm always doing.
Somehow Mitch McConnell got dragged in. Like I read some articles about this, but basically like a dude who seems like Satan was running for the Republican primary in West Virginia. Don Blankenship.
You kill a couple people in a mine, and all of a sudden you're a bad guy.
Right?
Right. No, he was convicted.
Okay.
Because election night, he also was like paroled.
Okay,
or something.
so that guy's evil.
Right.
And then he said that Mitch McConnell had his hands on some blow that was like on a boat that belonged to Mitch, allegedly.
Allegedly.
And then Mitch McConnell, when Don Blankenship lost, Team Mitch tweeted a Narcos meme at Blankenship and said, "Thanks for playing, Don. Like, we live in a hellscape simulation that is like one part Hunter Thompson acid trip and another part season 2 of Narcos."
Do you think, do winners and losers here? Obviously, we all lost.
Yeah. America.
Who wins here? Does McConnell Digital Team, do they win?
I don't know. They got their memes off. Is that their job?
Yes. That's what a digital
so
team...
that's it. They
all
put Mitch's face on a Pablo Escobar body, and it was the poster for Narcos Season 2, and it said, "Thanks for playing, Don."
Do you think the next move for Beau Willimon, late of House of Cards, is to just write a movie about a Senate Majority Leader who is also hashtag a coke lord?
If it was called Cocaine Mitch, I definitely think you'd get some engage on that. I think there would be some interest in there.
Do you think Narcos and Netflix, are they winners or losers here? Like,
huge winners.
Well, okay, talk about it. Talk about the media marketing strategy.
Because it's permeated our national discourse now, man. Like, that's...
Are you saying?
People talk about we don't know what shows on Netflix are popular. We do. Narcos is popular.
I thought you were suggesting that until this moment, until Narcos was renewed for season 4, cocaine had yet to permeate American culture in a meaningful way. And so you were suggesting...
Yeah, no, that's not what I was saying.
Okay.
Other news on the Narcos tip.
Great.
And this brings us to sort of a more serious conversation.
Oh, good. Other than suggesting, basically alleging that the Majority Leader of the United States Senate has his hands in the pot.
He doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure he's in spick and span hands. But the next bit we want to get to is that the star, one of the stars, the first 2 seasons of Narcos, and a personal favorite.
Yeah.
Will we go as far as to say a watch favorite?
This is by the way, this is next level gymnastics you're doing to get to this.
No, it's not. It's like we're talking about how Narcos, it's the ripple effect of Narcos. Boyd Holbrook.
That's your man.
Is in The Predator, which trailer just dropped today. Directed and written by Shane Black, who was in the original version of the film back in the 80s.
As an actor. Now he's known best as the auteur behind Iron Man 3.
Yes. Shane Black directed this version. It stars Boyd Holbrook as an assassin, Jacob Tremblay as a boy.
Okay, that's kind of outside of his wheelhouse.
Olivia Munn as a scientist. And Sterling K. Brown as a dude
in a suit
who wears a jacket. Yeah. And
there are a couple other people that you're not mentioning.
Go ahead.
Theon Greyjoy is in this movie. Like, don't pull the nets in before they're full.
Keegan-Michael Key is in this movie.
Yes, he is.
The trailer dropped today. It's Thursday. It's giving me life. I'm super excited for The Predator.
Now,
people talk about. How do you want to approach this?
Well, I have a question. Let's just talk about this project, because then I want to talk culturally about it.
This project.
I thought I didn't know that this was being just put out there as the Predator.
Yeah.
I thought this was like more Predators or here they come, the Predators.
No. It's basically going back to the source material.
And Shane Black, who I lovingly said made Iron Man 3, which is low-key one of our favorite Marvel Universe movies, also wrote Lethal Weapon movies.
And Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which he directed, yeah.
And many other, Ghost wrote a lot of things. He was sort of the original Bad Boys screenwriting.
The Last Boy Scout, yeah.
And is a personal favorite of both of us.
Yes.
And so they handed him the keys, and it looks like he did something worthwhile with it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what people think of this because obviously the question here would be why? Why do we need to go back to the Predator?
By the way, that's the magic undoing question of all pop culture in 2018.
Well, we're going to get to that because it's been sort of hanging over a couple of news stories this week in culture. But I don't know. I mean, when people talk about like this sort of longing for the way Hollywood used to be in the 80s and the 90s and this sort of middlebrow stuff, like I like the hand that rocks the cradle as much as the next person. I enjoy like a good thriller, but I also really do miss these kind of brassy, profane, violent action movies in a big way. And they were, I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to discern whether they're good or not anyway. The Die Hards, the Under Sieges, all these movies, because they're such a part of my childhood anyway, that I basically grew up on them. So to see something that kind of seems to have that vibe and that energy is really exciting.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, longtime listeners to this podcast would not expect me to have a soft spot for The Predator or a reboot of The Predator. Despite my affection for Jacob Tremblay playing boys, which is really a good look for him.
Did you say you're a Tremblay completist at this point?
I mean, does that require watching twos of movies? I don't know. Has he been working?
I think he's been in 3 movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Room, The Predator, and some other one.
Like Wonder or something.
Yeah, Wonder. I didn't see that.
You want to check that out and come back? Like, you want to just take a quick... Zach, can we get a quick 65? Chris is going to go watch Wonder. But I think that this trailer was exciting. And it's exciting for the same reasons that you touched on, which is there is an entire genre of films that we're defining for you, for me, for our generation. Shout out to West Coast Video. These were the movies that you got to watch at sleepovers in middle school or before middle school, frankly, way before you were supposed to watch them. You mentioned Die Hard, Predator, Total Recall.
Early cable movie favorites, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically...
Not Josh Brolin cable.
No, it's just like when you first got HBO.
Yeah, and they were on all the time.
And Die Hard would just be on, and you'd watch it for an entire summer.
And I to this day, I've seen Die Hard more than maybe any other movie.
Yeah.
And I do not regret that use of my time one bit. But I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about when we wanted to watch things communally, and we wanted to just, I don't know if we would have verbalized it because we were kids, but we wanted to have a lot of fun or see something that was extreme in any number of ways. We weren't checking for the CGI. Now, CGI didn't exist, but we weren't checking for special effects. What we were checking for was this weird blend of testosterone and humor and weird like community spirit between groups of roughnecks. I don't know. There was something appealing about these movies in a way that was just, I don't want to say it was pure because a lot of these movies were, not considered to be great, although some of them really are. And we've gotten so far away from that. And I was thinking when I was watching this trailer that one of the reasons why horror movies, I think, remain so successful, and I say this as someone who watches literally zeros of them, it's not just that they are constantly adaptable to the cultural moment, one of the most pliable genres out there. It's because I think the spirit in which people go to see them is relatively unchanged. Whereas the spirit of action movies has really been split because that corner has been eaten up by the comic book tentpole movie, and then the rest of it is the Expendables.
Yeah,
right? Am I missing something?
Some Fast. I think Fast and Furious has kind of taken over a lot of that, and then I think that there is like John Wick, which is the probably most mainstream version of a lot of stuff that came out of like Hong Kong or the Raid movies,
which
and
is
a little bit,
genre,
which is a little bit more hardcore. The funny thing you're mentioning with the West Coast Video stuff is like, and I dare say that a psychiatrist could make a lot of money in analyzing the true impact that this had on me. But you're talking about like the camaraderie between roughnecks. Movies like The Predator, we keep calling it it's Predator is the first one. This is called The Predator, the new one is. But movies like Predator were gloriously inappropriate to watch when I watched them.
Oh, me too.
Like, not only now looking back where I was like, there's just like a lot of like oiled up Carl Weathers and Sonny Landham and Jesse Ventura.
I remember what happens to those guys.
And then Bill Duke praying over Jesse Ventura's emptied out corpse. When he's just like, I'm going to find them. I'm going to make them bleed.
The Republican voters of Minnesota can relate.
So there's that. There's like real extreme violence that I don't think I ever quite processed. Like when Carl Weathers gets his arm torn off, but the machine gun is still shooting.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like, these are the things, if you were to flip through the scrapbook of my pre-adolescent memory, large swaths of the book are Carl Weathers' rippled bicep triggering M16 rounds
Just going,
in the Costa Rican jungle.
Yeah.
Or wherever it was.
Yeah.
This is probably not okay, but there are worse things, is my point here. And it'll be particularly interesting to see. I mean, Shane Black, I think, has the cred and the swagger to basically grab. He kind of did it with Iron Man 3 too, which is to say, I know that all of these things are supposed to connect to 100 other movies and to do well across all quadrants of the earth, and they need to be PG-13, blah, 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 and sort of ignore all of that to as much as he could. This kind of seems that way to me too, and it'll be very interesting to see if he was successfully able to Frankenstein all of the threads of 80s filmmaking that he comes from and that appeals to him, including the Spielbergian, there's a little kid at the heart of this.
That's the thing is, I never watched a Predator movie and I was like, I really need a kid involved in this.
Other than yourself underneath a quilt at some kid's house in Havertown watching this on a 8-inch television.
Putting baby oil on my like pubescent bicep and being like smoking a cigar. No, I just think that like this trailer opens up with Jacob Tremblay like opening a box with like a Predator homing beacon inside of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, well, like, I mean, is he necessary to be putting in this situation? I don't care. Really, I don't care. I'm excited for Boyd. I'm excited for the science of Olivia Munn. This is going to be amazing.
There's another thing here too, though. In this trailer, there's one shot well, there are a couple shots, but there's one moment where Sterling K. Brown is just like has a big reaction shot, like get a load of this asshole, and I'm like, these guys got it. Like they understood what movie they were in, which is a key part of all these things. This Shane Black communicating what kind of movie he wants to make.
Absolutely.
It's probably worth noting at this point in our podcast how much of what we do is reading the tea leaves of trailers for some sense of people being in on the various jokes or some sense of trying to corral the bucking bronco of multi-quadrant IP.
Yeah.
Take that or leave it. But weirdly, you can call me on this when I fully don't see this movie the day it opens. Like
you're seeing it. I'm taking you.
But
I'm gonna black bag you. We're going to this.
Can we bring a quilt?
Yeah, sure.
It was intriguing and it was kind of heartening.
In other news from the Department of possibly unnecessary remakes and reboots, one of the stranger stories that I've come across. There's two really strange stories this week. One, competing Leonard Bernstein.
That's hot IP.
Yeah, competing Leonard Bernstein movies. One starring Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Cary Fukunaga. One starring and directed by Bradley Cooper.
Which one?
And I had heard that there were two scripts. Like there was a Mark Singer script that the guy worked on The Post with Liz Hannah, and then there was another one out there, and that's the one that Fukunaga is making with. And I have to imagine, unless we're heading for another Prefontaine situation, that one of these movies will like actually happen and the other one won't, right?
I no longer know what applies anymore.
Right.
You know, that would make almost too much sense. I mean, we are living in a
world. The Bernstein
world...
verse could support two movies. I just don't know if they both need to come out at the same time.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, we are living in a world where the Getty kidnapping spawned 12 hours of entertainment in a 6-month period.
Yeah. So that was a strange story. And another strange story was definitely this Friday Night Lights news.
Okay.
So for people who haven't seen it, Friday Night Lights, David Gordon Green, great filmmaker, directed Stronger, directed Pineapple Express, worked a lot on Eastbound and Down, directed a lovely movie called All the Real Girls a long time ago that I'm still fond of. He has been hired to direct a Friday Night Lights movie.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Chris? Well, I don't know, because this is one of the stranger releases. Obviously, there has been I would say an uptick in interest in Friday Night Lights over the last, it's been 7 or 8 years since it's gone off the air? Maybe longer, right?
Less.
Yeah. Well, in any case, it's a show that's lived on. It's streaming on Hulu now. Obviously, people have fallen in love with it. Several people from the show have gone on to huge careers, like Taylor Kitsch and Michael B. Jordan. Kyle Chandler's having a good career. Connie Britton's still out in there in the mix.
Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons,
weirdly
obviously,
the biggest star.
probably they're not making a show about the Taylors. They're not making a movie about the Taylors. They're not going to reboot.
Which was in the mix for a minute, though I think that was kind of a poor idea.
That had been talked about. What's going to happen with the Taylors now that I think they're in Philadelphia at the end of Friday Night Lights, right?
Yeah, they moved to the City of Champions.
Yeah.
I mean, recent history.
Right. So
excluded.
do you think Eric Taylor worked on Doug Peterson's staff in the Friday Night Lights timeline that we're talking about?
Could you imagine a better quality control coach?
Oh, my God.
Wait, can we pitch this?
Don't you think Eric Taylor would have worked in the room with Frank Reich and Joe DeFilippo?
Yeah, do you think that he created the Philly special play? I think he drew that up.
Oh,
whoa.
What?
I think so. I mean, why not? Right?
He just walks right up to him and he just goes, "Hey, Philly special."
Yeah, they're like, who's this guy?
They're like, "Who's this guy with the sunglasses? It's cold." Anyway, they are not going to make a Smash and Riggs and Julie and Saracen show or movie. They are not going to continue in the, I think it was late 80s, the 80s that was the Billy Bob Thornton, Peter Berg movie version. It is basically a Texas high school football movie, a reimagining, a new story, new characters. I think even like not Odessa or Dylan, which it is in the show. Is this just like an excuse because like David Gordon Green was like, I want to make a football movie, and they were like, well, we have Friday Night Lights? Or did they go to David Gordon Green and say, hey, do you have a take on Friday Night Lights?
My guess is that it's the latter.
Okay.
I mean, he just did Halloween. You know, he's playing with toys that interest him. That is what a successful director can do in today's Hollywood. I'm not really mad at this because there is room for more.
Sure.
There's room for more stories, given with a certain spirit, with a certain focus on on young people, on athletics, obviously, but also race and class that play into the story that was there in Buzz Bissinger's book that started this whole thing.
Yeah.
That said, and also I'm here for David Gordon Green as a filmmaker. He always makes interesting, thoughtful choices in whatever type of project he's working on. He's a really good and interesting filmmaker. I will say that it does seem like a little bit of a missed opportunity, only because we have a phenomenal exploration of that world. We have two. I mean, the Peter Berg version, and then I think the show started a little bit with Peter Berg's vision, but very much became a Jason Katims.
Yeah, I think Berg came up. I think Berg worked on the let's have 3 cameras going in this room.
His direction style was there.
And you guys, we don't have to worry about blocking. We can just cut around it. And then the dialogue and a lot of this, we have a story, but we don't necessarily have the dialogue nailed down.
I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't have minded seeing a Ryan Coogler version of this. Now, my guess is the studio thought so too.
Sure.
And he said, I'm very busy for the next 20 to 35 years. But it does seem like a missed opportunity if you're going to create something that could be reused and retold in different ways, which again, I'm saying it should be. There's a rich opportunity here for an anthology film series, basically, of different visions of life. I kind of wish that they had someone with different eyesight.
I have no idea whether or not this is the case with this property, but I think it's worth mentioning to our listeners that a lot of the times when you see weird activity that seems inexplicable like this, it could have something to do with the rights. And the rights reverting, the rights lapsing. That often happens with superhero stuff, where they have to get stuff going on certain characters or certain lines or with certain companies, because pretty soon it'll revert.
If Sony or Fox, well, Sony did give Spider-Man essentially back to Marvel in a sharing agreement, but if Fox doesn't keep Fantastic Four IP and X-Men IP in development for a certain amount of time, it reverts to Marvel.
And obviously, I mean, Friday Night Lights has been a very rewarding property. I don't know if it's ever been like a blockbuster, but it's something that clearly has a really dedicated fan base. Even from the movie, made like around $60 million. The show struggled for ratings, but has become one of the most beloved shows of the century, I would say. But it's interesting. It's very interesting. I was thinking about the same thing with the rights issues with Fox has ordered The Passage to series. And it sounds like, without giving much away about the books, although Andy and I have talked about The Passage pretty extensively in the past.
Justin Cronin, future dystopian vampire novels.
Yeah. That the show that they described really applies to like the first 80 pages of The Passage. So I'm curious to see what happens with that, but I wonder what they've been trying to make this. Ridley Scott was going to make it. Gosh, I can't. A bunch of people have been attached to it.
It passed through a lot of hands before ending on TV, and then it was curious that it ended up on broadcast TV. But they seemed passionate about trying that. I mean, it was a big swing, but it's also the kind of big swing that predates the Disney move that is likely to decimate the original content on Fox.
How so?
Well, we talked about this before, but
that is unless Comcast buys Fox.
Well, who knows what's going to happen? But basically, Rupert Murdoch was retaining ownership of the network, but selling the studio to Disney.
I see.
It all of a sudden it become increasingly, in order to be a viable entity either on broadcast or on cable, you need to own what you create, own what you broadcast, so you can have it during its whole life cycle, because that's where the profits are. So it's sort of a weird. It would potentially, if the Disney deal went through, it would leave Fox as this sort of shadow entity. And that's why there was a lot of thought that it would go much harder into reality, much harder into sports, and even some news, because why would they be? Because it just wouldn't be financially viable.
Yeah, they've only like greenlit a couple of series over the last couple of years, right?
Well,
like the Orville.
Well, no, I mean this would have been the first year reflecting the new reality, but then they can't even move forward in that reality because they don't know what's going on. But it was noteworthy that some very expensive shows were ended today, like Last Man on Earth
and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is an example of a show that does well for them, is really critically loved. It has a passionate fan base, and it's owned by Universal,
right?
And it's very expensive. And I think maybe in a different universe they would have figured something out, but maybe this is just one of the times they have to cut the cord. One Friday Night Lights thing,
sure,
that I wanted to bring up in the spirit of this larger conversation. I'm just spitballing here, so come up with something different.
You mean something? You're going to spitball something other than Coach Taylor's post Friday Night Lights life that involved him joining Doug Peterson's staff?
Oh no, I'm going to go pitch that as soon as this is over with. You have to understand that. Can you think of a cast, a television cast, a beloved cast, that could be more easily plugged into other franchises? What I mean is, the cast of Friday Night Lights, the television show, would make a terrific Predator movie. Like,
I mean, I would watch.
What else would you plug them
show
into?
with that cast?
Yes.
I would watch a procedural with that cast.
Yep.
I would watch, like, kind of like romantic brothers and sisters, like, drama.
So you would watch that cast in every show on ABC.
I can't think of a single show that I wouldn't watch that featured Taylor Kitsch, Michael B. Jordan, Adrian Palicki, like all those things.
Minka Kelly,
yeah,
Connie Britton,
yeah.
That's kind of a thing. Like, they should just sign them up as a traveling review and just plug.
Why
them
don't they have an
franchises.
FNL repertory company and just like every 3 or 4 years they do a show? But it doesn't have to be a football show.
You know who is getting very excited about this idea?
Who?
The dude who played Voodoo.
He was on a show. What was he on? I feel like he's in the Librarians. What's that show?
You mean Noah Wiley's
The
Librarians? Yeah, that's.
I can't remember which show that dude was on. Voodoo kept eating though. He's still out there.
Okay.
Okay, let's quickly talk about Killing Eve before we get to our Malcolmus interview.
I had one other thing.
Sure.
We're recording on Thursday. Last night, The Americans, show on FX, in its final season, aired its 7th episode. There are 3 to go. I would feel remiss if I didn't make a note of this, even though you're the backboard right now, and I'm just hitting balls. You know what I mean? I'm just training. I'm young Agassi here.
You give me some stuff to work with, and I'll see if I can volley with you.
Well, the big thing was it's been a really fascinating season because I talked about this with Allison Herman, a little bit with Rob Harvilla last year. This was, I think, the best drama on TV, my favorite show on TV. Season 5 felt like a really big missed opportunity. And for me, the beginning of this final season felt kind of a piece with that. That was the season when a lot of the things that I'd been praising for a long time as features started to feel more like bugs.
Yeah.
The show's disdain for traditional act outs and dramatic beats, its sort of disinterest in the busy work of plot that usually keeps things going. This season 5 just felt completely inert in a lot of ways, in kind of in a similar pattern to some episodes that I had praised for being like, this show won't play the game of TV.
Right.
In this, I was like, no, you got to play. You got to at least put on a jersey. I don't know what you're doing. And I think that Alan Sepinwall, in his criticism of the show, suggested that shows that get 2 final season renewals often fall into this trap, where there is once you get those guaranteed 2 seasons, you are clearing your throat for one season, and then you're letting it all go.
Yeah, because, and also we've talked a lot before about the new model for a lot of television now is use everything you have on your whiteboard as fast as you can.
Yes.
Don't save anything for like season 3 when you don't know whether or not this actor's still going to be popular or going to be on the show. You might get canceled. Who knows what's going to happen?
And there's another factor that's the point that I definitely want to go back to, because for the beginning of the season, I couldn't believe my reaction to a lot of the episodes, because there was an episode where the dramatic act out, the end of the episode, the last beat that should leave you breathless for the next week, was a close-up of a sandwich.
Was it like a poison sandwich?
No. It was
like a Russian sandwich?
Nope. A cold-cut sandwich that Philip Jennings had made after he had had a flashback to a time when he had to eat gruel or worse in a black and white flashback to his childhood in Russia.
I got it pretty good in America?
He didn't even. The camera lingered on it as if to say, well, at least you can get mortadella. So I didn't know what was going on.
Uh-huh.
Now, all of a sudden, in the last 3 weeks, the show unpaused itself and lurched forward to a degree that is almost like fast forward. And last night, the episode Harvest was absolutely devastating. It was excruciating to watch. The emotions on the show that were there for so long, they feel like they've been like Jurassic Park, someone finally unfroze them and everything is back again.
Yeah.
And all the things that I love so much about the show, just the way that it foregrounded emotion, and particularly familial emotion, and the weird complications and interactions between people who enter into these contracts, whether they are with a international actor or whether they're with the man or woman you want to marry. And to have that all rushing back was shocking and gratifying. And it also, though, really made me wonder about the things that we've accepted for a long time with TV and the things that we no longer do. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden last night, basically, and I apologize, there would be a minor spoiler here, Noah Emmerich's character, Stan Beeman, the dogged FBI agent who lives across the street and has become best friends with the spies.
With Mr. Colcutt, yeah.
Kind of figures it out.
Finally.
And he figures it out with just like and you realize that this show, The Americans, and many shows of its ilk that came around in sort of the post-Golden Rush, Golden Age Rush, predicated on one devious, difficult, dare I say, impossible question, are all kind of hinging on one moment like that. They are all one finger snap away from the entire premise crumbling.
Sure. And
again, I think it's to the credit of Joel Fields and Joe Weisberg that they strung it along for this many years. And they strung it along by just having Stan never think about it again, which is fine, because you can suspend the audience's disbelief when you don't engage with it. Mm-hmm. But it came so quickly, and you realize that things that we used to take for granted about TV, like, well, of course they're not going to solve the murder until season 7 because it's TV and we're going to spend more time with our friends. Those same points that probably you and I maybe we would have made a joke about it happening on Chicago PD or Chicago Fire last week. It's all the same stuff. It's all still happening.
Yeah.
And, it reminded me of in my own experience now when I was talking to our buddy Sam Esmail and his producing partner and laying the groundwork for the pilot I'm making, Briar Patch. I kind of had a very conservative-minded version of what future seasons could be. And I don't want to tip my hand too much about anything, but I became the most conservative, I'm going to pitching Steve Bochco in 1983 version of myself. And Sam was like, but why would something else happen to her? That just sounds like TV. I'm like, oh, right. We are not in that world anymore.
Oh, like she would eventually go through some other kind of similar...
What's the second murder that happens? Right. You know what I mean? And it was just such a visceral reminder of the disbelief that we've always done with TV and the trade-off that we've made in this sort of prestige era. I wouldn't trade 95%
yeah, I mean,
of the Americans
it's wild
for...
that we're just like, let's just do 3 more seasons of Broadchurch.
Right. It's ridiculous,
yeah.
On some deep level. in this case, it was
like
done
just
well.
story-wise. Like, I mean, like the actors are incredible. The story is interesting.
But
it's like
do something different.
Right,
Do
but like
the Predators in season 2 or whatever. Right. It was amazing to see this. And now these last 3 episodes are going to be wild because they are literally everything that everyone who has watched this show, not everything, they are 50% of what everyone who's been watching the show has been waiting for. The other 50% were those slow beats and the time spent with the actors and the great performances and the details and et cetera, et cetera. But it was really crazy to realize that. And especially, and really instructive because there were a couple podcasts you and I did where we were talking about how half hours were so vibrant and people don't seem to really understand what the next big hour is. And we saw the big move towards anthology series and event series or whatever you want to call them. And I didn't, and the arguments we were always making for those were, well, it's an undervalued resource. You can get actors to sign up, bigger actors to sign up for shorter term projects, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that I had never really considered was no one's figured out this problem, this essential problem. Unless you are a procedural or about a hospital,
right,
you're going to be about the one thing that you're going to have to pay the rent on at some point.
So this actually leads pretty well to Killing Eve.
Great. Yes, you're right, it does.
Because I know that it's been renewed for a second season, right?
It has. And it's been doing great.
It's been doing
really
well for a show that's on BBC America that, not a lot of people were checking for before it started. It is a remarkable show. I love it unconditionally. This last episode, in which, and we'll talk a little bit about this specifically, so if you aren't caught up, you can skip ahead to do whatever, where the two main characters, where Eve and Villanelle actually have a confrontation in Eve's kitchen.
Yep.
And it is played for both all of the sort of highs that you would get off of that kind of like these two characters are finally face to face and talking, and also the terror that would come from a trained assassin being in your home and essentially letting you know that at any given point she could end your life and the life of everybody you love was so perfect. And Sandra Oh's reaction to that scene was, she's so traumatized and she's so scared. And everything they do with it is just, like, incredible. But you do wonder. It's like, what do you do next? What do you do? How do you string this out? Does she just chase her for seasons and seasons and seasons? And this goes to, like, what do you do with Luther? What do you do with The Fall? What do you do with these cat and mouse things when everybody who's watching has so little time to watch everything anyway? But you are giving us what we want. You're already giving us what we want. You're giving us this complex portrait of these two characters who were once obsessed with and repulsed by one another. It's fascinating. It's perfect. Do you kill the golden goose by stringing it out?
This is, in many ways, this is the central question of pop culture, film and TV in 2018, where everyone always wants more, and now everyone seems increasingly thrilled to give you more. And, I think it used to be that was the knock on TV, that there was just always going to be more anyway. Then we sort of started to move away from it. That's the biggest tension left in the show for me. And I say that as someone who loves the show.
Yeah.
I love it wholeheartedly. And the only concern I have about it is what you're bringing up.
I think the thing that I'm sort of fearing
I want the full
is
story.
I don't want it, and I don't mean any disrespect to this because I really like this show in the first season, but I don't want it to turn into Orphan Black.
No, exactly.
I don't want it to turn into we're going to add 7 characters and we're going to have, Fiona Shaw's son's going to get an episode. I mean, like that's fine, but there's the way it's constructed now is perfect, and I kind of don't want it to become TV in that way.
And there are rewards to be had on both sides. Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer are just bringing it. These are two incredible high-level performances happening in concert with each other. When they were finally in the same room as they were in this week, it was electric. It happened at a really perfect time for the show, basically midway through, which was still sooner than I expected. Frankly, I did not understand that the show was going to go from an international espionage assassin show to kind of a serial killer single white female thing.
Sure.
And it works. That said, Matthew Rhys's performance on this episode of The Americans last night is not only exceptional, it is exceptional partly because of the time we have all spent engaged with it.
Yes.
every emotional note that he hit was at the part of the keyboard you can only reach when you've been playing more or less the same melody for 6 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that
it was incredible, and it came with the weight of everything we've spent with him and his own performance.
I've been thinking about all this a ton with Lost, because I think that Lost is only growing in influence in the way superhero movies and superhero franchises are told, especially as these superhero franchises are confronted with recasting, with sidelining, and then bringing back characters and timelines and futures and pasts. And I think a lot about Lost. And, you know, part of the reason why, even if I don't find Marvel movies particularly emotionally stimulating, you still have surface level, like, oh, so that's it for Chris Evans soon, is because you've spent 10 years watching it. And the same thing happened with Lost. Like, Lost actually had so much tape. There was so much tape of the characters in Lost. You were like, not only am I blown away by we have to go back, but I'm blown away because of like the way I feel about these people. And that's the same thing with what you're talking about with Matthew Rhys. There could be an entire bad season of that show, but that's a character you've been watching.
I still spent time with him during that year.
Yeah, exactly.
It like a sports team. I watched the bad season, and then I was ready for them when they made the playoffs and lost a little early, you know, but still have enough promise and talent to make me excited.
Yeah, but we also won the Super Bowl
next year.
Thanks to Coach Taylor.
And Coach Taylor won the Super Bowl for us. I think the one thing that I would say, and maybe we can pick at this over the weeks to come, is the most successful projects seem to have a really keen sense of exactly what they are. Orphan Black is a really good example of a show that I loved that first season. I was really impressed by every aspect of it. Tatiana Maslany was not worse in the second season. If anything, she was better. But that was a project that was ultimately impossible. There was no way it wasn't going to have diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Other than a kind of hardcore fandom and love of the character and the performances, characters in that case. Killing Eve, this is the big question on it. It is, other than Atlanta, it is the best show on TV right now.
But you can see that they're introducing this idea of the 12 and this sort of larger conspiracy.
Yeah.
That could be season 2, season 3, whatever.
I mean, what I would say is, and there's no good answer here, but part of me hopes that Villanelle and Jodie Comer's amazing performance is one season. And then if the show has to become a
Sandra Oh
and Fiona Shaw procedural against the 12, against whatever, okay.
Rather than she gets away at the last second at the end of the season and they chase each other through.
We could
South
be wrong.
America,
if Phoebe Waller-Bridge is writing it, and she's writing a ton of things right now, so who knows how much time she'll have to devote to anything, I'm there regardless. But part of me would prefer the kind of creative honesty that would demand we are going to do a supernova season, and then we are going to settle. And I'm okay settling if you're settling at the level that Killing Eve would settle in. You know, I think the danger is when you start really hot and then there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And you know, I think one of the reasons why Infinity War was successful for us is because it knew what it was, and what it was, you know, probably the most expensive episode of TV ever made.
Sure.
In a way. I mean, obviously the production values and the fight scenes or whatever, but the type of storytelling it chose to do, it succeeded within the parameters it set for itself.